They didn't build it all at once, and they didn't build it to keep out just one enemy. The truth? The Great Wall of China is not one wall, it's 1,000 stories stitched across centuries of fear, power, betrayal, and desperation. When people think of the Great Wall of China, they imagine a single giant wall stretching across mountaintops. But that's not how it started. This wasn't a grand plan by one emperor, it was a massive patchwork of walls, ditches, towers, and fortresses, built, abandoned, rebuilt, and sometimes forgotten for over 2,000 years. And behind every brick is a story, of laborers who died building it, emperors who feared the world outside, and kingdoms that fell trying to defend it. Today, we're uncovering the real reason this wall became the longest man-made structure in history, and why parts of it were never meant to last. Before China was one country, it was a land of chaos. We're talking about the Warring States period around 475 to 221 BCE. 7 major states like Qin, Zhao, Yan, Wei, Han, Qi, and Chu were all fighting for land, power, and control. And guess what they started doing? Building walls, not together, but against each other. Each state built its own walls to protect against rivals and raids from nomads in the north, especially the fearsome Xiongnu, ancestors of the Huns. These weren't elegant stone walls either. Most were rammed earth walls, piled up by peasants and soldiers using baskets of dirt. But the idea was born. Walls could buy time, protect people, and give rulers a psychological edge. Qin Dynasty, 221 BCE, 206 BCE, the first emperor's ruthless dream. Then came Qin Shi Huang, China's first emperor. After conquering the other 6 states, he wanted to unify China not just by law and roads, but by wall. He ordered the destruction of the internal walls between kingdoms, and began connecting the northern border walls into one long defense system against the Xiongnu. But this wasn't a peaceful project. Qin forced hundreds of thousands of peasants, prisoners, and soldiers to work under brutal conditions. Many died from exhaustion, starvation, or exposure. So many in fact that the wall was called the longest cemetery on earth. It wasn't made of stone, just packed dirt and timber, and it wasn't continuous. But it was long, cold, and heavily guarded. Qin's vision? A unified, walled empire. But his dynasty collapsed just 15 years later, and the wall began to crumble. Han Dynasty, 206 BCE, 220 CE, walls for trade and war. The Han Dynasty picked up where Qin left off, but for a different reason. Yes, they wanted to stop Xiongnu raids. But they also wanted to protect trade. The Han Empire had opened the Silk Road, sending Chinese goods west and bringing back gold, glass, horses, and more. To keep this trade flowing, they extended and rebuilt the wall far west into what is now Gansu and Xinjiang. They even added watchtowers, beacons, and garrisons, creating a military system that could send smoke signals for miles. But again, this wasn't one solid wall, it was a messy, ever-changing network of barriers and outposts, and as the empire grew weak, so did the wall. Northern dynasties, 386–581 CE, walls in the sand. During the chaos of the 6 dynasties and northern and southern dynasties, walls were built by nomadic rulers who had once been enemies of the Chinese states. One example, the northern Wei dynasty, founded by the Xianbei, who were once seen as barbarians. They expanded and repaired wall sections to defend their new homeland against even tougher invaders. It's ironic, right? Yesterday's enemy becomes tomorrow's wall builder. But none of these dynasties lasted long enough to build anything massive. Their walls were temporary, meant to hold off cavalry attacks, not last centuries. Sui and Tang dynasties, 581–907. A wall-free era? Now here's a twist. When the Sui dynasty united China again, they focused more on internal projects like the Grand Canal. And during the Tang dynasty, which ruled during a golden age of trade and diplomacy, the wall was mostly ignored. Why? Because the Tang rulers didn't rely on walls. They used alliances, marriage, and foreign diplomacy to manage threats. Plus, their army was strong enough to deal with problems outside the wall. For almost 300 years, the Great Wall was neglected. Some parts were even scavenged for building materials. But trouble was coming. Yuan Dynasty, 1271–1368. The Mongols don't need a wall fast forward to the 1200s. Genghis Khan and his Mongol Empire swept across Asia, tearing through any wall in their path. The Yuan dynasty, ruled by his grandson Kublai Khan, now controlled all of China. Did they care about the Great Wall? Not at all. In fact, they didn't rebuild it. Why would they? The Mongols rode through walls, not behind them. They used mobile armies, not static defenses. The wall was falling apart again, useless in the age of the horse archer. But that would all change with the dynasty that feared the Mongols more than anything. Ming Dynasty, 1368-1644, the wall, reborn in stone. The Ming Dynasty brought the wall back, and this time, they meant business. After kicking out the Mongols, the Ming leaders knew they had to defend the northern frontier. But the old dirt walls were no good anymore. So they started over with bricks, stones, and lime mortar. This is the version of the wall most people recognize today. Winding through mountains, deserts, and forests, with beacon towers, gates, forts, and even drainage systems. It was a fortress, a highway, and a communication line, all in one. The most iconic sections like Badaling, Mutianyu, and Jiayuguan were built during this time. The Ming Wall stretched over 8,800 kilometers, nearly 5,500 miles. But it wasn't just the length, it was the message: we're strong, united, and we're not letting outsiders in. And yet, it didn't work. In the early 1600s, the Ming Dynasty was under pressure from all sides: plagues, rebellions, corruption, and another northern threat. This time, it wasn't the Mongols, it was the Manchus. In 1644, a Chinese general guarding Shanhaiguan Pass, a key gateway in the wall, did something unthinkable. He opened the gates to let the Manchus through. Why? Because he was desperate. He wanted help crushing an internal rebellion. That moment spelled the end of the Ming Dynasty. The Manchus took over Beijing and founded the Qing Dynasty, which ruled for the next 250 years. All that wall, all those bricks, and it couldn't stop a general from turning the key. The wall wasn't breached by force, it was undone by betrayal. Here's where things get interesting. What we call the Great Wall today is really a collection of walls from different dynasties, built at different times in different places using different materials. Some parts are buried in desert sands, some are hidden in forests, some were built upside down on cliffs, and others, they've been lost forever. The total length of all these walls combined is over 21,000 kilometers, more than 13,000 miles. That's longer than the diameter of Earth, and yet, over 30% of the wall is gone. Destroyed by erosion, urban expansion, farming, and even tourists stealing bricks. In rural areas, villagers once took wall stones to build homes. No one thought it mattered, but now it does. Because the Great Wall isn't just a symbol of China's past, it's a living reminder of how fear-shaped nations, how walls can unite and divide, and how even the biggest defense can fall without loyalty behind it. Want some wild facts? The wall wasn't visible from space like people once claimed. That's a myth. Thousands of people died building it, but many were buried inside the wall itself. The wall wasn't meant to stop full armies. It was a delay mechanism. It bought time for reinforcements. Some parts were patrolled by dogs, birds, and monkeys trained to signal intruders. In remote regions, flamethrowers and poisonous smoke were used from towers. And get this, the wall had entire cities built into it, with markets, temples, and even brothels for soldiers. It wasn't just a wall, it was a way of life. So what did we really learn? The Great Wall wasn't one project, it was a chain reaction. Every dynasty built it for different reasons: fear, pride, protection, politics. Some built walls to keep enemies out, others built them to keep people in, and some ignored it altogether, believing the best defense was diplomacy, not bricks. But one thing stayed the same: every wall says something about the people who built it. The Great Wall of China isn't just a monument, it's a mirror. It reflects a nation's struggle to define itself, defend itself, and remember itself. And maybe that's why parts of it still stand. If you enjoy our journey, please like and subscribe to our channel, and if you like our content and want to support me, you are welcome to buy me a coffee. The link is in the description box below.